Go for it. Explain.
All right, so I just cracked it open. The only thing we took off so far is the lever drag, some of your body side plate screws. I've worked on thousands of Talicas, so this is very common. So whoever assembled this reel put the wrong grease. First of all, this is blue pen grease. It's crap. It turns into water. It's not meant for these gears. The second is your anti-reverse doesn't work. And the reason why is because the anti-reverse dog retention pads right here are upside down. So really quick, I'll show you. These are supposed to be like that. There's a flat spot here. You can see it's flat. We had it upside down, so it's forcing this anti-reverse gear flat so it wouldn't work, doesn't operate. So we're going to clean all that up. But I'll show you. And you have a bad side plate gear, which I keep them in stock. So there's the other one, completely put on backwards. Your anti-reverse dogs were not free to move, so the anti-reverse would not work no matter what. This is your main and pinion, your pinion bearing. This bearing right here is bad. And I'll show you after we get through all this grease. Take your gear set out. I do full disassemblies. There's 2 bearings in this reel. Helps if you have the right tools. This is your main side plate bearing. It spins. It's completely full of rust. And that's why your reel doesn't work, sir. Spool's assembled. Placed back into the housing. Look at that blue grease. It's a joke. I clean every tooth. And I use only electronics cleaner. That way it doesn't tear up any of your plastics, change any of the colors.
Hold on, go ahead.
I always treat everything with Q-Max. First of all, I use it to clean. Doesn't introduce anything foreign into the reel. And it's got a lubricant that's petroleum based. So it's not like WD-40 that actually eats grease and oil. This cleans and lubricates. So we're going to lubricate your clicker, which is in really good shape. But more Q-Max on the clicker pin inside and out. Now, one of the things I like to do is I like to treat the holes where the screws go, prevents salt intrusion, so we can take it apart down the road. Now, Shimano's use a special grease for Talica. You cannot put blue grease in a Talica. This is DG09. This grease is meant for Talica. It's a transparent grease. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to Q-Max the bracket mounts. That's where it gets a lot of salt and corrosion. Get any excess salt off. And now the screw heads are actually get lubricated because it penetrates. Always let them out a little bit, put some penetrating oil in so they won't seize up. Okay. This just needs a little bit of grease. It's more of a water prevention than anything. These parts have never been taken out of the reel. This is your 2-speed spring. I get all the crud out of it. And I mean, I get it all out. This is your 2-speed spring. See, that's factory grease on there, so whoever serviced it before did not take it apart. Put a little bit of grease inside, not too much. And then we're going to lubricate the outside. Now, the outside 2-speed I'll take off once the reel's completely back together again. But this gets recessed all the way back into the handle for later. We're going to put the spool back together. This is your washer set. All of your crush washers are still intact. I test every bearing at high speed. That bearing's in really good shape, but we put penetrating oil in it anyway, so it's smooth. Now we take your spool, just enough grease where the bearings are seated, keeps water out. Not too tight because the screws are stainless and the spool's aluminum. You don't want to over tighten. But we're going to clean this rim. We're going to put new grease on your clicker. And this holds the pin in. It keeps the spool from spinning free. We're going to go to this side and test each bearing. That one's flawless. That one's flawless. And clean them and oil both. Before we put those in, I'll let that penetrate for a minute. This is your drag disc. I already lubricated the carbon fiber drag washer, which you have to do. This is a simple assembly. I'll put a little Q-Max on that once it's seated. You have to keep pressure or it won't seat properly. And you have to use the right screwdrivers so I don't tear up your screw heads. Snug them. Not too tight, but not too loose because they'll rub on the inside of the side plate. Q-Max. Spool's assembled. Side of the gear gets fresh grease because you see it gets a little bit of salt build up on it, which is not bad. Before we put those gears back in, let's clean out all this mess. Look at this. That's pen grease. Doesn't belong anywhere near a Shimano reel. Look at the corrosion built up in here because it had the improper lube. Can't use pen grease in a Shimano reel. I can't say it enough. Actually, you can't use pen grease in a pen reel. Alright, so we get the majority of the crud out. And I clean with some Q-Max first. Let's loosen up the mess. The bearing cup just full of crud, corrosion, dirt. Now the electronics cleaner just gets everything out. Bearing cups. Now what you see there, that is just some of the aluminum is a little bit corroded, but it's cleaned off. There's nothing left there that's going to harm it. I get every little corner, every little bit of dirt, then we blow it out. We're going to put fresh lube in both your bearing cups and on your anti-reverse posts. This takes a 9x20x6. We've got those in stock. These aren't the cheapest bearings, but they're also not the most expensive. But these are Japanese stainless ABEC 5 bearings, low tolerance, high quality. We're going to test this bearing. This is a 12x21x5. It's your handle shaft bearing. That spins fine. We're going to treat it. A little bit of cleanse oil. Back in place. Perfect. Shaft's already lubed. New shaft, gear spacer, your 2-speed dog. This, you got to push it down, get the 2-speed dog set. Okay, that's done. Your gear spacer, just a little bit of grease, not too much, and we're going to lubricate the gear teeth last thing. So this thing is just coated with pen blue grease. Got to make sure you get the brush into every one of these teeth in case there is some worn gear material, which they all wear. And they all stay discolored. That's brass. It's like a patina. No big deal. That's seated. Then the top washer. This blue grease is a mess. The screw goes back and backwards. Loosey to tighty. Helps having the right tools too. That's the way it's supposed to look. Now I'll put a little bit of grease on your gears, but not too much. You don't want them soaking wet. All you want is the amount that's going to stick to each tooth. That's done. Now we're going to clean your pinion. It's important that these cleaning channels are always cleaned out. If you'll notice, there's a little channel. See those little channels right there? That's the way it's supposed to look. Now I'll put a little bit of grease on your gears, but not too much. You don't want them soaking wet. All you want is the amount that's going to stick to each tooth. That's done. Now we're going to clean your pinion. It's important that these cleaning channels are always cleaned out. If you'll notice, there's a little channel. See those little channels right there? Salt likes to get in there and hide. Pinion gear's clean. And lubricated. Put a little bit of penetrating oil in your new bearing. Now this is your second gear for your 2-speed. See, it's got channels 2. They're often filled with salt. Clean them out. I like to put a little grease inside. Get it seated. Make sure the grease just barely gets on the gear. Now for your anti-reverse that they had put together backwards. Anti-reverse is clean. You always have to clean inside each dog. And you can push the ears back in. So you just want them to kind of touch. Realign your dog. You're going to align that tooth and that dog. And now we're going to clean these on and we're going to put them back on properly. Use a little bit of that trashy grease just to attach the screw to the screw head because the screws are stainless and not magnetic. Oops. Now you'll notice there's actually space between the dogs and the caps. Oh, look, your anti-reverse magically works. All right, we're going to reassemble this for now, and we'll come back and take the 2-speed apart. Grease. And this has to be seated properly. So you seat it in low and then in high until that square lines up. I'll get one in for now. Test the operation. Of course, when we put your lever drag back on, we're going to check your lever drag. Got to make sure that the clicker's still in. And I put a little bit of oil in there. Also check this ring, make sure it's intact. This is your clicker ring. We're going to treat the side of the reel with Q-Max. I like to shield the line because it has an aroma. It's not going to keep the fish from biting. But some people don't like that. So we're going to use a little bit of lube. Not much, just enough so that when this spins, it moves it around. Click works. Clean out the lever drag. It's actually pretty clean. We're just going to put a little bit of lube in there. And that's for the cam. Cam goes back in place. Get it to click. Brand new, baby.